Thank you.
Given are the watches, and to present watches to the Japanese is really a marvelous improvement and development in our country. And I can assure you, Excellency, at the next meeting, when we meet here, we'll be presenting you colored TV sets better than yours. Now, gentlemen, we move for hot tea and cold coffee. Thank you.
First, we will start an address by Mr. Koide, Director of Japan External Trade Organization on bridges and barriers. Mr. Koide.
Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here this morning to talk about some aspects of the Japanese economy and the Japanese market. My original subject of my speech was bridges and barriers, but unfortunately I couldn't bring the movie film named the same bridges and barriers this time. So the movie film I brought here about Japanese consumers. So I'm awfully sorry about this. So I'd like to talk about the Japanese economy and the Japanese market. I am from Japan External Trade Organization, JETRO Tokyo head office. That is the semi-governmental trade promotion organization established in 1958. JETRO had been established in the first to promote Japan's export, but from the middle of 1970s, we have started import promotion activities in the face of an increasing trade imbalance with foreign countries. We are having 77 overseas offices in 58 countries, including our New Delhi office, in addition to 29 local offices in Japan. All staff members in these offices are doing import promotion activities every day, in addition to other ones. You can get our New Delhi office address in the directory you have already got on your hand. Now I'd like to start with the Japanese economy. As you know well, we still have a huge amount of trade surpluses, despite the Japanese government measure to make the Japanese yen appreciate against the US dollar to reduce these surpluses. The Japanese yen to the US dollar, yen's rate to the US dollar is now about 142 yen. I think this rate has been too much appreciated, and 160 yen to a US dollar would be appropriate. But for the time being, the yen's rate is moving between the range of 140 to 150 yen to the US dollar. The Japanese government has been implementing so many varieties of measures, fulfilling the recommendations mentioned in the report on economic structural adjustment for international harmony, which is very important and is commonly referred to as the Maekawa report, announced in April 1986. Among these recommendations, a top priority has been put on the industrial restructure. That is transformation from dependence on exports to a stronger base in domestic demand. According to these recommendations, the number of blast furnaces for crude steel production and commercial operation will be reduced from 34 to 27 in a few years, while 18 non-ferrous mines have recently closed, leaving only 34 still in operation. A substantial portion of domestic shipbuilding facilities will be scrapped under the government-supervised restructuring program. Domestic coal production will be cut 15% in 5 years. Even automakers will refrain from boosting production at home in favor of more stress on streamlining of production lines and research and development. By implementing these measures, the Japanese economy has been suffering from the recession from 2 years ago. But recently it is showing some signs of recovery. It was quite appropriate that the Maekawa report emphasized the need for housing and urban development plan, as well as introducing consumption. Housing investments are showing steady activity following the expansion of available loan from the government-funded Housing Loan Corporation and commercial banks. New housing construction starts showed two-digit growth of 11 consecutive months from last July, backed by an improved return on real estate investment, aggressive lending by financial institutions, and preferential tax treatment. Totals from April to May jumped 21.9% over the same period last year. Consumer spending has also resumed robust growth after a temporary slowdown at the end of last year. This upswing is evidenced by brisk sales of consumer electronics and automobiles. Also a sharp increase of imports of food, apparel, diamond, and other consumer products. The slowdown in real wage growth in this fiscal year will be more than compensated by the anticipated 1 trillion yen in personal income tax cuts. For these reasons, the real growth of personal consumption will surpass that of last year. Further stimulating the economy, the government has drawn up a massive 5 trillion yen public works spending plan. The spending schedule is heavily front-end loaded, with about 70% of the budgeted amount earmarked for fiscal 1987. An income tax cut will be implemented ahead of the comprehensive tax revision plan. Capital investment by non-manufacturing sector has rebounded sharply from the beginning of the year. Behind the brisk investment, lie new business opportunities created by the strong yen and record low interest rates. Plant and equipment investment in the manufacturing sector will also pick up later this fiscal year. The Economic Planning Agency said last month officially that the Japanese economy is recovering from a recession dating back to mid-1985, backed by steadily increasing domestic demand, although its tempo is somewhat moderate. Japan's imports are increasing across the board. Manufactured product imports have jumped 20% from the latter half of the year. A major factor affecting the import is the yen's appreciation, which has increased the price competitiveness of foreign goods. While imports into Japan have been steadily increasing under the stronger yen, Japan's trade surplus remains massive. In view of the urgency of the situation, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry meeting is planning a 10% tax deduction system for boosting manufactured goods and capital goods imports. The tax deduction, expected to be worth 100 million yen, will greatly enhance the competitive edge of imported goods over domestic goods. MITI has already instituted a series of measures to increase imports. It has already asked about 300 trading companies and manufacturers, whose business transactions account for 6% of goods imported into Japan, to increase their imports in fiscal 1987 by more than 20% over the year earlier level. According to MITI's calculations, imports in fiscal 1987 will surpass $150 billion compared to $125 billion in 1986. Because of the leveling off of dollar-based exports, the trade surplus is expected to shrink from record $101 billion to about $80 billion. I'd like to turn my eyes to Japanese market from now. The government recently announced the annual economic white paper, which is mentioning also a remarkable increase in Japan's manufactured goods imports as a notable trend. Those imports swelled 34.7% in fiscal 1986 to reach $55.2 billion and accounted for 44.1% of the nation's total imports, up sharply from 31.1% in the previous year. And the ratio is expected to surpass 50% in this fiscal year. This trend showed that Japan's traditional import structure, which has been heavily dependent on raw materials and fuels, have begun transforming itself to one centering on industrial products. The white paper said also that the government's steady marketing opening measures are encouraging purchases of more foreign goods by the Japanese people. The yen's drastic appreciation against the dollar also has been a major driving force to accelerate these trends. Actually, cars are selling well, so are refrigerators, air coolers, large screen TVs, jewelry, and travel packages. Imported car sales in Japan is now booming. They are likely to set a record this year, spurred by declining prices, resulting from the stronger yen and from promotional sales incentives. Imported cars registered in Japan during the first 7 months of 1987 jumped 41% over a year earlier to 54,053 units, while the Japan Automobile Importers Association announced that it has revised projected sales for 1987 from 75,000 to 80,000, but actual sales will most likely to hit 90,000 units if the present pace continues. In case of refrigerators, one Japanese household electric appliance manufacturer decided to engage in OEM imports of small refrigerators from one of the biggest South Korean counterparts. when the plan was made public, the company had so many inquiries from distributors and consumers as to the quality of the product. The officials in charge of the company, therefore, had to learn all over Japan to explain their distributors that there was no difference in quality between South Korean and Japanese products. Consequently, 5,000 South Korean refrigerators were sold out within 6 months. Another big supermarket store has also been importing video cassette recorders from South Korean manufacturers. They are selling well, according to the manager. Now, we can see so many South Korean electric and electronic products at the discount shops in famous Akihabara electric shopping district, downtown Tokyo. One of the Japanese biggest automakers has recently made cost comparisons of Japanese and US auto parts on the basis of an exchange rate of 150 yen to the dollar, and found American parts to be 30% cheaper than their Japanese equivalents, even when transportation costs were figured in. Vice President of the company is saying that his company is quite willing to make purchases in cases the prices are right and the qualities are up to specifications. The number of Japanese overseas tourists have increased so much that last year's figures have surpassed 5.5 million among 1.4 million Japanese who went overseas in July and August. Bulk of them are single nobles, that is young married men and women. The government reported in its white paper that 42% of the women and 18.9% of the men who traveled abroad last year were in their 20s. Japanese tourists are buying so many expensive souvenirs back to Japan to enjoy the benefits of the strong yen. The government lifted the ceiling of tax-free overseas shopping from 100,000 yen to 200,000 yen on July 1st. It is quite regrettable that the value of souvenirs purchased by these tourists are not counted as the import fees, which is incredibly enormous. Anyway, Japan seems to have entered a near unprecedented affluence. Japanese companies and wealthy citizens have been buying land, office buildings, golf courses from overseas. Early last month, one of Japanese billionaires reportedly bought the bankrupt Dunes Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas for $155.7 million. One Japanese golf course operating company has bought the prestigious Tambury Golf Course in Scotland, one of the host courses for the annual British Open. As I have already mentioned, this year's average wage increases have fallen short of 4%, and the summer bonuses have also showed a modest increase over last year. So many Japanese are now thinking the increase in consumer spending may be a result of gains in personal assets realized from the soaring prices of stocks, land, golf club memberships. The Nippon Telegraph and the Telephone Corporation stock, the symbol of the ongoing money game in Japan, was offered at an initial price of slightly less than 1.2 million yen last February, when it was listed on the stock exchange. The price has now soared to around 3 million yen by the end of April. It has now been stabilized at around 2.4 million yen, spinning off capital gains within a few months. Even housewives are turning to stock investment now. Prices of houses and land have recently shot up enormously. A standard new house about 100 square meters floor space with 200 square meters land located 20 kilometers from Tokyo Station, that is the center of Tokyo, cost less than 100 million yen a few years back. But now, it has been priced at 200 million yen or even 300 million yen. Last year, prices of commercial and residential land in Tokyo jumped 76% from the year before, according to the National Land Agency. With house and land prices going up, it is impossible for an ordinary salaried man to buy a house in Tokyo. On a corporate level, the current money game boom is disgusted by some businessmen who do not consider it a healthy way of using funds. They are claiming that it is a diversion from legitimate corporate activities and takes money away from productive purposes. But supporters of those investments are saying it is a legitimate way to maximize profits with surplus funds. Anyway, the problem is a very grave concern to Japanese industries, especially engaged in manufacturing businesses. Here I'd like to mention some this year's best-selling products. Those are the automatic baking machines, large screen TVs, and four-wheel steering cars, according to the Japan Economic Journal, one of the best things there in Japan. Consumers are slow in responding to the government call to spend more in order to increase domestic demand. But they do seem ready to loosen their purse strings if products they believe will be matching their lifestyle or upgrade their life quality. The bread baking machine automatically makes dough, controls the fermentation, and bakes a loaf of bread. It is just all right for a housewife to put only a mix of flour, salt, butter, and dry yeast, and add water into the machine in the previous night. Next morning, they can get fresh home-baked bread with a preset timer on the machine. The automatic baking machines priced at between 36,000 to 39,000 yen have been selling well to reach an estimated 350,000 units by the end of July. The sales of the baking machines would be expected to surpass 1 million units this year. The large screen TVs have become certainly popular among Japanese families these days. TV set with 22-inch or larger picture tubes accounted for 12.8% of the total output of 8.2 million sets last year. They would account for 22% this year. And just recently, 40-inch very big screen TVs have been put on sale in the market. Someone is asking, what having larger TVs in small light hatches? Some reasons are that the large screen TVs prices are getting more attractive, and such TVs are becoming the new status symbols of their lives. Another reason is that they are enjoying rental video shops in their large screen TVs, borrowed at the price of 300 to 500 yen overnight from the videotape rental shops. Concerning four-wheel steering cars, the unexpected successful sales of them have been owing to the deal of Japanese youngsters for advanced car engineering technology. These best-selling products are matching the needs of time and the consumer's requirement to better their living standard. People in today's mature consumer-oriented society in Japan want something extra or out of everything. So many varieties of consumer products are affluent in the Japanese market now. You can find many similar products in the same line, such as TVs, refrigerators, air coolers, radio cassette recorders, dresses, and the like in the market. They are competing each other everywhere. Wholesalers are always watching the market trend of each merchandise, especially of fashionable items. Otherwise, they would have to contain stock unsold. Japanese consumers are most quality conscious all over the world. They are also demanding reliability and durability as well as product quality. Defected merchandises should be exchanged with new undefected ones immediately after its finding. After-sales services are also important. Individualization, while maintaining high quality and reasonable cost, is one of the most important features about consumer demand in Japan. Consumer preferences has been so diversified recently that manufacturers and importers have to provide for the market so many varieties of but small lot of merchandise. This trend is quite conspicuous among young people. Young people are also fashion conscious, but they don't mind the famous mass name brands if their quality proves to be good. They are looking for individual delicate deviation with the prevailing style. Anyway, they are a relatively affluent group of consumers and rather rich too. For this reason, youth market is worth penetrating. Another recent feature about the Japanese consumers is that they have the tendency to prefer products using natural materials, which have natural textures and feelings, such as solid wood furniture, handloom products, handicrafts, and the like. I hear that your country are planning to hold both Indian Handloom Fair and the Jewelry Exhibition in Tokyo this month. I think these projects are quite timely because the Japanese consumers are showing special interest in these handlooms, especially designed by the Japanese famous designers. Concerning jewelry, sales of diamonds for accessories have increased 58% for the first half of this year to 1.09 million carats, owing to big demand for jewelry. This will surpass 2 million carats this year. We, JETRO, will participate in the India International Trade Fair 87 to be held in New Delhi in November, introducing the present situation of Japan in general and the Japanese industrial levels. We are also holding the Indian Light Engineering Goods Exhibition at our head office in November to show Indian bicycle parts, hand tools, electric components, and the like to Japanese buyers. We are just planning to increase our budget for holding your Indian products exhibition in the next fiscal year. JETRO is always cooperating with their export promotion organization to offer assistance to Indian manufacturers and exporters for their penetrating the Japanese market. Please knock the door of the Japanese market anytime. We are waiting for your knocking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koelim. It was a very illuminating and full of statistics. I am sure there should be a lot of questions on his speech. But before I can ask the next speaker to speak, I would request the previous speaker, Mr. Kaku, to kindly come forward and sit over here. And also Mr. M.V. Subbarao, former chairman, Indian Bank, to kindly come forward. Please. Now I would request Mr. Akira Shinohara to speak on toward a successful venture between India and Japan.